She was hired to pour wine, not to become the bargaining chip. The penthouse fell silent when Korean Mafia boss Kang Jin-woo finally spoke. "Name your price," his rival demanded. Everyone braced for bloodshed, territory, millions in laundered cash. Jin-woo didn't glance at the contracts on the table. He didn't acknowledge his girlfriend's hand on his shoulder. His eyes locked on the black woman in the maid's uniform, her. One word. Victor Hale's face drained of color. "She's just... I don't repeat myself." And just like that, Stephanie Brooks became the price. Hey family, before this story begins, I want you to do something real quick. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your comments fuel these stories. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And Happy New Year to every single one of you. Let's start this year with a story that will keep you glued till the very end. Stephanie didn't remember lowering the tray. She only remembered the sound of it hitting the marble floor, sharp, final, before hands closed around her arms. "Wait," her voice cracked despite her effort to stay calm. "There must be a mistake." No one answered. The room erupted into chaos, voices overlapping, chairs scraping back as men stood and argued at once. "You can't do this," Victor snapped, pushing back from the table. "She's not part of the deal." Jin-woo remained seated. "She is now." His girlfriend finally moved. Her hand slipped from his shoulder slowly, as if she had just realized where she was. Her expression didn't break, but something ugly flashed in her eyes. "You humiliate me like this?" she said quietly. He didn't look at her. Two guards tightened their grip on Stephanie. Panic surged, hot and blinding. She struggled instinctively, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Please," she said, forcing the word out. "I don't even know what's happening." Jin-woo's gaze found her again. For the first time, she saw something shift in his eyes. Not pity, not cruelty, interest. "You'll be escorted," he said calmly. "Nothing more." "That's not reassuring," Victor muttered. Jin-woo's head tilted slightly. "Neither is crossing me." That ended the discussion. Stephanie was led toward the exit, her legs moving on instinct as her mind raced. She caught fragments of conversation behind her. Angry whispers, hurried calls, the sound of deals collapsing in real time. Just before the doors closed, she looked back. Jin-woo was already signing paperwork, his attention returned to business. As if choosing her had cost him nothing at all. The doors shut. The elevator descended in silence. Stephanie pressed her back against the mirrored wall, breathing shallowly. The guards flanking her stared straight ahead, their expressions unreadable. "Where? Are you taking me?" she asked. "Somewhere secure," one replied. "That's not an answer." He didn't respond. The ride felt endless. Her thoughts spiraled. Her apartment, her sister's unanswered texts, the life she had walked into that night believing she would leave unchanged. The doors opened into an underground garage. A black car waited with its engine running. "No," she said softly. One guard turned. "Get in." She hesitated just long enough to make her point, then she obeyed. The car pulled away smoothly, city lights flashing past the tinted windows. Stephanie folded her hands tightly in her lap to keep them from shaking. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why me?" The man in the passenger seat glanced at her through the mirror. "That's not our concern." "That's my life," she snapped before she could stop herself. The guard's mouth twitched, almost like a smile. "Not anymore." The words settled, over her like a weight. They arrived at the estate just after midnight. Tall gates slid open silently. Armed guards nodded as the car passed through. Everything about the place screamed control. Inside, the house was immaculate, cold, perfect. A woman in her 50s approached, posture rigid, eyes sharp. "You'll follow me," she said. "No wandering, no questions." Stephanie followed. She was shown into a bedroom that felt more like a hotel suite than a prison, but the locks on the doors told a different story. Fresh clothes were laid out on the bed. Food covered with silver lids sat untouched on a table. "You may rest," the woman said. "You will be informed when he is ready to see you." "He?" Stephanie asked. The woman paused. Mr. Kang. The door closed behind her. Stephanie stood alone in the center of the room, the silence pressing in from all sides. Her knees weakened, and she sat slowly on the edge of the bed. This wasn't fear anymore. It was realization. She hadn't been chosen because she mattered. She had been chosen because she was expendable. Somewhere in this house, Kang Jin-woo was continuing his night as if nothing extraordinary had happened, while Stephanie Brooks tried to understand how her life had been traded without her consent. Stephanie woke to the sound of the door unlocking. She sat up instantly, heart racing, every sense on edge. A woman entered carrying a tray. Younger this time. Nervous. She avoided eye contact as she set the food down on the small table. "You should eat," the woman said quietly. Stephanie studied her. "How long have I been here?" The woman hesitated, fingers tightening around the tray. "Over 12 hours." Stephanie's stomach dropped. "Can I make a call?" "No." "Why?" The woman swallowed. "Because you weren't brought here to negotiate." That confirmed it. Stephanie rose slowly, smoothing the front of her uniform even though it no longer mattered. "Then why am I here?" The woman shook her head. "I don't ask questions." She left quickly, the door locking behind her. Stephanie stared at it for a long moment before exhaling sharply. She hadn't cried, hadn't screamed, hadn't begged. And still, she was locked away like an object someone had misplaced. She forced herself to eat. Survival first, emotion later. Hours passed in heavy silence. The house breathed around her. Footsteps outside, murmured voices, the subtle shift of guards changing positions. Then the door opened again. This time, it wasn't staff. Yoon Hai-rin stepped inside as if she owned the room. She was impeccably dressed, posture perfect, expression calm in a way that felt rehearsed. Her eyes moved slowly, cataloging everything before settling on Stephanie. "So," Hai-rin said softly, "you're the price." Stephanie stood. "I didn't agree to be." Hai-rin smiled faintly. "None of us agree. We adapt." She walked closer, heels clicking with deliberate precision. "Do you have any idea how humiliating last night was for me?" "I wasn't aware your feelings were part of the deal," Stephanie replied evenly. The smile vanished. "You have nerve," Hai-rin said. Stephanie met her gaze. "You came here to intimidate me. I won't pretend otherwise." For the first time, Hai-rin looked mildly surprised. "Interesting," she murmured. "You don't look scared." "I am," Stephanie said. "I just don't think you deserve to see it." Hai-rin laughed quietly. "You really don't understand where you are." "I understand enough," Stephanie replied. "I was traded." Hai-rin's eyes hardened. "Careful." "Or what?" Stephanie asked, voice steady despite the fear curling in her chest. "You'll remind me that I'm disposable?" Silence stretched between them. "You think Jin-woo chose you because you matter?" Hai-rin asked. "He chose you to punish someone, to prove something." Stephanie swallowed. "That sounds like a problem between the two of you." "Oh, it is," Hai-rin said calmly. "And you're standing in the middle of it." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Men like him don't fall in love with women like you. They use you until there's nothing left." Stephanie didn't step back. "Then why are you here?" The question landed harder than intended. Hai-rin straightened. "Enjoy the illusion while it lasts." She turned and left. Stephanie remained standing long after the door closed, the weight of the encounter settling deep in her chest. She had expected cruelty. She hadn't expected truth sharpened into a weapon. That night, the door opened again. This time, Kang Jin-woo entered. No guards, no entourage, just him. Stephanie rose slowly, her pulse loud in her ears. He didn't speak immediately. He simply looked at her, dark eyes assessing. "You ate," he observed. "I wasn't sure when I'd be fed again." He nodded once. "Practical." She crossed her arms. "Am I supposed to thank you?" "No." "Good, because I won't." A flicker crossed his expression, not quite amusement. "You're angry," he said. You took my life without asking. I saved it. Her breath caught. From what? From men who would have destroyed you just to prove they could. She shook her head. You don't get credit for choosing the lesser evil. He stepped closer, not invading her space, but close enough that she felt the gravity of him. Do you know why I chose you? He asked. Because I was convenient, she replied. Because you didn't look away, he said. She frowned. What? When violence filled the room, he continued, everyone else flinched. You stayed still. That's fear. No, he said calmly. That's control. She searched his face for mockery. There was none. I didn't consent to this, she said quietly. You will never be touched without your consent, he replied instantly. The certainty unsettled her. And when you're done proving your point, she asked, I don't discard what I claim. I'm not something to be claimed, she snapped. He studied her. Then why are you still standing? The question hung heavy. Because running won't save me, she said finally. Silence. Rest, Jinwoo said after a moment. Tomorrow you'll move freely within the house, and after that, we'll see. He turned to leave. Wait, she said. He stopped. What happens if I leave? He looked back. You won't. That's not an answer. It's a warning. The door closed behind him. Stephanie sat back down slowly, heart racing, not only with fear now, but with something more dangerous, awareness. Because Kang Jin-woo wasn't testing her obedience. He was testing her will. Stephanie stepped into the hallway just after dawn. It felt wrong to walk freely after being locked away, like the house itself might correct her for forgetting her place. Guards stood at intervals, eyes tracking her movements without comment. She kept her chin up. If they were watching, she wouldn't give them fear. The kitchen was quiet, stainless steel gleaming under soft lights. A few staff members froze when they noticed her, their expression shifting from surprise to something closer to unease. One woman whispered, "That's her." Stephanie pretended not to hear. She poured herself a glass of water, hands steady despite the attention. Every instinct told her to retreat, to disappear back into the room she'd been assigned. She didn't. If she shrank now, they would decide who she was for her. Good morning. The voice was calm, controlled. Stephanie turned slowly. Kang Jin-woo stood in the doorway, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled, to his forearms. He looked less like a man preparing for war and more like someone who had already won one. You said I could move freely, she said. I did. So I am. He studied her for a moment. Most people would have stayed in the room. I'm not most people. That earned her a quiet, assessing look. Eat, he said, gesturing toward the counter. You'll need the strength. For what? She asked. For surviving this house. She scoffed softly. You talk like I chose it. You chose not to collapse, he replied. That matters. Before she could answer, the air shifted. She felt it in the tension, in the way staff suddenly found reasons to leave the room. Yoon Hai-rin entered the kitchen. She was immaculate. Tailored outfit, flawless makeup, posture straight as a blade. She stopped when she saw Stephanie standing there. Well, Hai-rin said pleasantly, I see confinement didn't last long. Stephanie said nothing. Jinwoo didn't turn toward her. What do you want? Hai-rin smiled. Breakfast and an explanation. Her gaze slid to Stephanie. I didn't realize the help would be joining us. Stephanie set the glass down carefully. I can leave if this is private. No, Hai-rin said instantly. Please stay. I'd hate for you to miss this. Jinwoo's eyes darkened slightly. Say what you came to say. Hai-rin turned to him. I want to understand why you thought humiliating me in front of Victor Hale was strategic. I didn't humiliate you, Jinwoo replied evenly. I made a decision. About another woman. The words hung heavy in the air. Stephanie felt them land even though they weren't aimed at her. This is about power, Hai-rin continued, and you handed yours to a maid. Jinwoo's gaze flicked briefly to Stephanie. She's standing right here. That's exactly my point. Silence spread. Through the room. Stephanie straightened. If you're talking about me, you can talk to me. Hayrin's eyes sharpened. Bold. Necessary, Stephanie replied. You came here to remind me I don't belong. I already know that. Jinwoo watched closely now. You think you belong under this roof? Hayrin asked softly. No, Stephanie said honestly, but I think you're afraid of why I'm here. Hayrin's smile tightened. Careful. No, Stephanie said calmly. You should be, because this isn't about me wanting him. She gestured subtly toward Jinwoo. It's about you realizing he didn't need you to make that choice. The silence that followed was sharp. Jinwoo said nothing. That was worse. Hayrin glanced at him, searching his face for denial. It didn't come. She laughed quietly. You're very confident for someone who doesn't understand consequences. I understand them, Stephanie replied. I just won't carry your insecurity for you. Jinwoo stepped forward. Enough. Hayrin turned to him, eyes flashing. So now you defend her? I stop situations before they turn reckless, he said. She studied his face, then nodded slowly. Fine. Her gaze returned to Stephanie. Enjoy your moment. Men like him don't share power. They consume it. Then she turned and walked out, heels echoing sharply down the corridor. The tension lingered long after she was gone. Stephanie's hands finally began to shake. You shouldn't have challenged her, Jinwoo said quietly. She challenged me, Stephanie replied. I just refused to bow. That makes you dangerous, he said. She let out a soft, incredulous laugh. I'm the least dangerous person here. You don't know that, he replied. He gestured toward the hallway. Walk with me. They moved through the house in silence. Staff stepped aside quickly now. Guards watched more, closely than before. They stopped near a large window overlooking the grounds. You can leave, Jinwoo said abruptly. Stephanie turned sharply. What? I'll arrange transport, protection, a new job. Her chest tightened. Why? Because staying will make you a target. And leaving? She asked. What does that make me? A memory, he said. No, she replied firmly. It makes me a message. One that says, you folded. His eyes narrowed. You care about how I'm perceived? I care about not being discarded after I've already been traded, she said. That struck deeper than she intended. He studied her for a long moment. Staying will change you. It already has, she replied. And if you regret it, I'll regret leaving more. Silence stretched between them. You're choosing danger, he said. I didn't get to choose last night, Stephanie replied. I'm choosing now. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or something heavier. Very well, he said. You stay. And Yoon Hai-rin? Stephanie asked quietly. His jaw tightened. She'll learn where the line is. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. Why did you really choose me? He paused. Because everyone else in that room was asking for something, he said. You weren't. Then he walked away. Stephanie stood by the window long after he was gone, pulse racing. She finally understood the truth. She wasn't just caught in a war. She was being pulled into its center. The first warning came disguised as kindness. Stephanie noticed it in the way the staff suddenly spoke too softly around her, in how doors were opened before she reached them, in how the guards outside her room doubled overnight. She hadn't asked for any of it. You're not imagining it, a young housekeeper whispered as she handed Stephanie a folded stack of linens. Things are tense. Tense how? Stephanie asked quietly. The woman hesitated. Miss Yoon has been making calls. That explained everything. Stephanie thanked her and continued down the hall, pulse steady even as unease settled in her chest. She had chosen to stay. That didn't mean she would pretend not to see the consequences. She turned a corner and nearly collided with Jinwoo. He caught her elbow reflexively, steadying her before she could step back. The contact was brief, controlled, but it sent a sharp awareness through her. Careful, he said. I was, she replied, until you appeared. His gaze lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. Then he released her. You should avoid the West Wing today, he said. Why? Meetings. With her? Stephanie asked. He didn't deny it. She's been busy, she added. Yes. Planning to remove me quietly? His expression hardened. She won't touch you. That's not what I asked. He studied her, then spoke more carefully. Hei Rin doesn't strike openly. She creates situations where other people do the work for her. Stephanie absorbed that. So I should expect accidents. Expect provocation, he corrected. She nodded. I can handle that. I doubt that. She met his gaze. You didn't know me when you chose me. That earned her the faintest curve of his mouth. Stay close to the house today, he said, and don't engage her. That might be difficult, Stephanie replied. She seems determined to engage me. Then let me handle it. She hesitated. At what cost? He didn't answer. That afternoon, the first trap was sprung. Stephanie was asked to deliver a folder to Jin Woo's private study, an unusual request, but not implausible. The hallway was quiet when she reached the door. She knocked once. No answer. She pushed the door open. The room was empty. Then the door shut behind her. Stephanie turned sharply. Yoon Hai-rin stood there, her expression calm, almost pleasant. I wondered how long it would take, Hai-rin said. Stephanie's muscles tightened. If you wanted to talk, you could have just asked. Talk? Hai-rin laughed softly. No, I wanted to see how far you'd follow instructions. She gestured to the desk. Do you know what that folder contains? Stephanie didn't answer. Financial records, Hai-rin continued. Transactions that could end alliances or start wars. Stephanie's stomach dropped. Why am I holding them? Because if they disappear, Hai-rin said smoothly, you'll be the one blamed. Stephanie understood immediately. This is a setup, she said. Hai-rin smiled. This is inevitability. Stephanie placed the folder on the desk. You think he won't see through this? I think he'll see what I want him to see, Hai-rin replied. A woman who doesn't know her place. Stephanie stepped closer, lowering her voice. You're not afraid of me. Hai-rin tilted her head. No, you're afraid of losing him. That struck. Hai-rin's smile vanished. He was mine before you existed in his world. And yet, Stephanie said quietly, he chose me. The door opened abruptly. Jin Woo stepped inside, eyes moving instantly to the folder, then to Hai-rin, then to Stephanie. What's going on? He asked. Hai-rin turned toward him smoothly. I was just explaining why your maid shouldn't be trusted with sensitive materials. Stephanie didn't speak. Jin Woo's gaze sharpened. Leave. Hai-rin blinked. What? Now, he said. She stared at him, disbelief flashing across her face. You're taking her side? I'm removing you from this room. Her jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. No, he said calmly. You are. Hai-rin looked at Stephanie one last time, her eyes cold. This isn't over. Then she left. The silence that followed was heavy. Jin Woo closed the door himself. Did she threaten you? She tried to make me the weapon, Stephanie replied. He nodded. I expected as much. You knew? She asked. Yes. And you still let me walk into it? I needed to see how you'd respond. Her eyes flashed. So I'm a test now? You always were, he said honestly. She took a step back. I won't be used like that. You weren't, he said. You didn't take the bait. That doesn't make this acceptable. No, he agreed. It makes it dangerous. He reached for the folder, then paused. From now on, your position changes. Stephanie stiffened. To what? To someone under my direct protection. She frowned. That will make things worse. Yes, he said, but it will make them clearer. That evening, the shift became visible. Stephanie was seated at dinner, at the long table, not in the shadows. Staff stared openly, guards repositioned. Whispers rippled through the house. Hai-rin arrived late. Her eyes went straight to Stephanie's chair. She smiled slowly. How considerate. Jin Woo met her gaze. Sit. Dinner passed in tense silence until Hai Rin set down her fork. "You're changing the rules," she said. "I am enforcing them," he replied. "And what happens when your allies question this?" "They already are." Hai Rin's laugh was humorless. "You're burning bridges." "For her?" she asked, nodding toward Stephanie. "For myself," Jinwoo said. Stephanie felt the weight of that settle in her chest. Later that night, she stood alone on the balcony, the city lights flickering below. Jinwoo joined her quietly. "This will escalate," he said. "I know. People will get hurt. I know." He looked at her. "You can still leave." She turned to face him. "If I do, what happens to you?" His brow furrowed. "Why do you care?" "Because," she said softly, "I don't want to be the only one paying the price." Something in his expression broke, just slightly. "You already have," he said. They stood in silence, the air between them heavy with what neither was ready to name. And somewhere in the house, Yoon Hae-rin began planning her next move. The attack didn't happen when Stephanie expected it. That was the mistake. She had learned the rhythm of the house by now, the quiet hours, the loud ones, the predictable patterns of guards and staff. She knew when Hae-rin was present and when she wasn't. She knew which corridors felt watched and which felt ignored. So when Jinwoo told her she would attend a charity gala with him, she didn't think of danger. She thought of optics. "You want me there?" Stephanie asked as she stood in his office, arms folded. "Yes." "As what?" she pressed. He looked up from the document he was reviewing. "As my guest." Her chest tightened. "That's not subtle." "Nothing about this situation is subtle anymore," he replied. She hesitated. "Hae-rin will be there." "Yes? And your enemies?" "Yes." She let out a slow breath. "You're using me." "I'm acknowledging reality," he corrected. "You already exist in their minds. Hiding you only gives them room to imagine worse." "That doesn't make me feel safer." "It shouldn't," he said quietly. "It makes you prepared." The gala was held in a glass-walled hotel overlooking the city. Money and power filled the room, wrapped in silk and diamonds. Stephanie felt every stare as soon as she stepped inside beside Jinwoo. She wore a black dress, simple, elegant, nothing flashy. It didn't matter. She was still the woman who shouldn't be there. "Walk beside me," Jinwoo murmured. "Not behind." She did. Whispers followed them like smoke. "That's her. The maid? He brought her here?" Stephanie kept her face neutral, pulse steady. She had chosen to stay. This was the cost. Hae-rin appeared near the bar, radiant and furious beneath the surface. Her gaze flicked to Stephanie, then to Jinwoo. "So it's true," she said when they approached. "You've replaced discretion with defiance." Jinwoo didn't rise to it. "Enjoy the evening, Hae-rin." Hae-rin smiled tightly. "I always do." She turned to Stephanie. "Careful, dear. Rooms like this eat people alive." Stephanie met her gaze. "Then you should leave." Hae-rin laughed softly. "You really don't know when to stop." The first shot came 15 minutes later, not aimed at Stephanie, not at Jinwoo. It shattered a glass pillar across the room, sending guests screaming and diving for cover. Guards moved instantly. Jinwoo's hand clamped around Stephanie's wrist, pulling her behind him as chaos erupted. "Down," he ordered. She obeyed. Gunfire echoed again, closer this time. "Victor Hale," Jinwoo muttered under his breath. Stephanie's heart pounded. "He followed us?" "He didn't," Jinwoo said grimly. "He was invited." Men surged from hidden exits. The gala dissolved into panic. Jinwoo shielded Stephanie with his body as they moved toward a service corridor. A gunshot rang out, too close. Stephanie felt something warm splash against her arm. She screamed. Jinwoo staggered. "No," she whispered. He was still standing, but blood seeped through his jacket. They reached the corridor just as guards slammed the door shut behind them. Jinwoo leaned heavily against the wall. "You're bleeding," Stephanie said, hands shaking as she pressed them against his side. "It's not deep," he said through clenched teeth. "You don't know that." He looked at her sharply. "You're alive, that's what matters." Sirens wailed outside. Footsteps thundered down the hall. When it was over, the news broke fast. Kang Jin-woo injured protecting a woman at a public event. The woman wasn't Yoon Hai-rin. The fallout was immediate. At the estate, doctors treated Jin-woo while allies argued in hushed, furious voices. Stephanie sat alone in a side room, her hands stained with his blood. Hai-rin found her there. "This is your fault," Hai-rin said calmly. Stephanie didn't look up. "He chose to stand in front of me, and you let him." Stephanie met her gaze slowly. "You wanted this." Hai-rin's lips curved. "I warned you consequences would come." "And now?" Stephanie asked. "Now," Hai-rin said. "Everyone knows where his weakness lies." That night, Stephanie went to Jin-woo's bedside. He was awake. "You should leave," he said immediately. Her eyes filled despite her effort. "You don't get to decide that after bleeding for me." "This is no longer theoretical," he replied. "You saw what happens." "Yes," she said. "I saw you get hurt. That will happen again." "Then stop putting yourself in front of me." He laughed weakly. "That's not how instinct works." She swallowed hard. "You're losing allies." "I know. Power. I know." She stepped closer. "And eventually, me." That made him still. "Is that a threat?" he asked quietly. "No," she said. "It's honesty." He looked at her for a long moment. "I never intended for this to happen." "I know," she replied. "That's what scares me." She turned to leave. "Stephanie," he called. She stopped. "If I tell you to go now," he said, "will you?" She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "Not yet." She left him there, wounded, powerful, and shaken for the first time. And across the city, Yoon Hai-rin made her final call. Stephanie didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jin-woo staggering, blood blooming through his jacket as he shielded her. She replayed the moment again and again, searching for the second she could have moved differently, stood somewhere else, become invisible again. Morning came without mercy. By noon, the house felt different. Voices were sharper, doors closed more quickly. Conversation stopped when she entered a room. She was no longer a secret. She was a liability. Jin-woo called for a meeting. Stephanie wasn't invited, but she listened from the hallway anyway, her back pressed to the wall, heart racing. "This ends now," a man said angrily. "You're risking everything." "He brought her into a war," another voice snapped. "We warned you." Jin-woo's voice cut through them all. "I didn't ask for your permission." "That's the problem," someone replied. "You never do." Stephanie swallowed hard. "So what?" Another voice asked. "You choose her over us?" Silence. That silence was louder than any answer. She pushed away from the wall before anyone could see her and walked quickly down the corridor, pulse pounding. She found him later on the terrace, jacket discarded, bandage visible beneath his shirt. He was staring out at the city like it had personally betrayed him. "You're awake," she said. He turned slowly. "You heard." She didn't deny it. "They're right." His jaw tightened. "About what?" "About me," she said quietly. "I don't belong in your world." "Neither do half the men who pretend they built it," he replied. "That doesn't make me safe," she said. "Or you." He stepped closer, ignoring the pain etched into his movements. "Do you think I don't see what this is costing?" "Then stop," she said sharply. "Stop choosing me." The words hit harder than she intended. His eyes darkened. "You think this is a choice I enjoy?" "No," she said. "I think it's one you don't know how to undo." Silence stretched between them. "Leave," he said finally. "For now." Her chest tightened. "For my safety?" "For my sanity," he replied. "Before I burn everything trying to protect you." That scared her more than any threat. She nodded slowly. "Then let me leave properly." He frowned. "Explain." "Not as cargo," she said. "Not as someone being hidden. I walk out, publicly, alive." "That will signal weakness," he said. "No," she replied. "It will signal choice." He studied her for a long moment. "You're asking me to let you go." "I'm asking you to trust me," she said. That night, arrangements were made. Stephanie was told she would be escorted to a safe apartment under another name. Temporary, quiet. She packed quickly. When she reached the front hall, Hae-rin was waiting. "You're leaving," Hae-rin observed. "Yes," Stephanie replied. "Good," Hae-rin said. "Then perhaps some order can be restored." Stephanie met her gaze. "You didn't win." Hae-rin smiled. "You're walking away from a man who would destroy the world for you. That sounds like victory to me." Stephanie hesitated. "You think you know him?" "I know power," Hae-rin replied, "and I know when it turns foolish." She stepped closer. "He won't survive loving you." Stephanie's voice was steady. "Neither will you." Hae-rin laughed softly. "We'll see." The car waited outside. Jin-woo didn't come down to see her off. That hurt more than she expected. The drive was silent. The city felt unfamiliar now, like a place she no longer belonged. The apartment was small, secure, empty. Stephanie stood in the center of it, keys heavy in her palm. She was safe. She'd never felt more exposed. 2 days passed, then 3. No word from Jin-woo. She told herself that was the point. On the 4th night, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. "Are you alone?" Jin-woo asked quietly. Her breath caught. "Yes." "Good," he said. "Listen carefully." Her heart raced. "What's wrong?" "Hae-rin moved," he said. "Not against me." "Against you." Stephanie's chest tightened. "How?" "She leaked your location." Fear flooded her veins. "To who?" "Victor Hale," he said flatly. "And someone else." "Someone else?" "Someone who doesn't miss." Stephanie backed toward the door instinctively. "Then why am I still alive?" "Because I anticipated this," he replied. "And because you didn't run." Footsteps sounded in the hallway outside her apartment. Her blood ran cold. "Jin-woo," she whispered. "Someone's here." "I know," he said calmly. "You have 2 minutes." Her pulse roared in her ears. 2 minutes for what? "For me to reach you," he said. "You're injured," she protested. "That won't stop me." The doorknob rattled. Stephanie grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, anything, and positioned herself beside the door. "Stephanie," Jin-woo said softly, "if anything happens—" "Don't," she cut in. "You don't get to say goodbye like this." A gunshot shattered the lock. She screamed. The door burst inward, and in the chaos that followed, Stephanie realized the truth. Leaving hadn't ended the war. It had only changed the battlefield. The gunshot echoed through the apartment like thunder. Stephanie dropped to the floor just as the door splintered inward. Wood cracked. Metal screamed. A second shot tore through the wall where her head had been seconds earlier. She crawled blindly, heart slamming against her ribs, breath coming in sharp gasps. "Stephanie!" Jin-woo's voice barked through the phone. "Bathroom! Now!" She scrambled to her feet and ran, slamming the bathroom door shut behind her. She locked it, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "They're inside," she whispered. "I know," he said. "Listen to me. There's a vent above the shower. Push it out." "What?" "Now." She grabbed the edge of the vent cover and yanked. It gave way with a screech. Cold air rushed out. Footsteps pounded closer. "Get in," Jin-woo ordered. Another shot exploded through the door. Wood burst inward. Stephanie screamed and hauled herself up, scraping her arms as she shoved into the narrow opening. She pulled the vent cover back just as the bathroom door crashed open. "Stephanie!" a man shouted. She held her breath, pressed flat in the darkness, dust coating her lungs. Minutes passed, then the sound of running feet, retreating. Her phone vibrated. "Stay still," Jin-woo said. "They're pulling out." Her body sagged in relief, so sudden it hurt. 10 minutes later, sirens wailed below. When Jin-woo arrived, he didn't bother knocking. The door burst open again, this time with authority. Stephanie crawled out of the vent as boots thundered through the apartment. Jin-woo reached her just as her knees buckled. He caught her, hard. "You're bleeding," he said sharply. "So are you," she shot back, gripping his shirt. "You came anyway." "I told you I would." She stared up at him, chest heaving. You were shot 2 days ago. And, he said, and you still ran into gunfire. His jaw tightened. That's what this is now. They were rushed out under heavy guard. Outside, flashing lights painted the street red and blue. Neighbors stared from windows, whispers rippling outward. Stephanie felt exposed, seen, hunted. Inside the car, she finally let herself shake. Jinwoo wrapped his arm around her without asking. Firm, protective. You shouldn't have left, she said hoarsely. No, he replied. I should never have let you go alone. She laughed weakly. We're terrible at this. He didn't smile. Back at the estate, chaos reigned. Men argued openly now. No hushed voices, no careful glances. She led them straight to her, someone shouted. That was Hae-rin, another snapped. Don't pretend you don't know. Jinwoo strode into the room, Stephanie beside him. Enough, he said. Silence fell. She's here, one man said sharply. Because of you. Yes, Jinwoo agreed, and because of betrayal. All eyes turned. Hae-rin leaked her location, he continued calmly, to Victor Hale and to a contract killer. Murmurs erupted. She wouldn't dare. She did, Jinwoo cut in, and I have proof. Stephanie's breath caught. Jinwoo turned to her. You should sit. No, she said. I'm staying. Something unreadable crossed his face. Then he nodded. Moments later, Yoon Hae-rin was escorted into the room. She didn't look surprised, dramatic as always. She said lightly, Is this really necessary? You tried to have her killed, Jinwoo said. Hae-rin shrugged. I tried to end a problem. Stephanie's fists clenched. You tried to erase me. Hae-rin's gaze slid to her. You were never meant to exist in his world. And yet, Stephanie said, voice steady despite the fear still trembling beneath it. Here I am. Jinwoo stepped forward. You crossed a line. I defended my position, Hae-rin replied. You were losing control. No, he said quietly. I was choosing. Her composure cracked. You chose a maid over me. I chose integrity over manipulation, he said. That hurt her. Stephanie saw it. Hae-rin laughed bitterly. You think this ends cleanly? My family won't accept this. I've already spoken to them, Jinwoo replied. Your alliances are severed. Hae-rin froze. You used my name. She whispered. I protected it, he corrected, until you made that impossible. Guards stepped closer. Hae-rin's gaze snapped back to Stephanie, sharp and venomous. If you stay, you will destroy him. Stephanie stepped forward before Jinwoo could stop her. Then let that be my choice, she said. Hae-rin stared at her. You think love will save you? No, Stephanie replied softly. I think honesty might. That was enough. Hae-rin was escorted out, her heels echoing sharply against the marble. The room remained silent long after she was gone. Jinwoo turned to Stephanie. I never wanted you in this. I know, she said. And now? He asked. She looked around at the men watching them, the power shifts already forming. Now I understand the price, she said. And I'm still here. His expression changed, something raw slipping through the control. Later, alone in his office, the silence felt heavier than any argument. You could still leave, Jinwoo said quietly. After tonight, no one would stop you. She shook her head. Leaving won't make this safer. It will make you free. She stepped closer. I don't feel free away from you. The words hung between them, dangerous and honest. He reached out, stopped himself, then slowly cupped her face. Stephanie, if this becomes love, it already has, she said softly. That's what scares you. His breath hitched. Outside, the city burned with consequence. Inside, two people stood on the edge of something that would either save them or ruin everything. Stephanie woke to silence, not the peaceful kind, the heavy, watchful silence that followed violence. The estate felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what would fall next. She lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the aftershocks of everything that had happened. The gunshots, the confrontation, Hayrin's face when the truth had finally stripped her of power. Love hadn't felt like this in her imagination. Love wasn't supposed to smell like antiseptic and gun oil. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood slowly. Her body ached in places she hadn't realized could ache. Fear had settled deep into her bones. A knock came at the door. "Come in," she said quietly. Jin-woo stepped inside. He looked exhausted. Not wounded, not angry, just worn down in a way power couldn't disguise. "You should still be resting," he said. "So should you." He nodded faintly. Sleep wasn't an option. They stood there, a few feet apart, unsure how to exist without the chaos between them. Finally, she spoke. "You almost died." He didn't deny it. "You almost did too." "That's not the same." "It is," he said quietly, "because it would have been my fault." The words landed heavier than any apology. Stephanie folded her arms, more to steady herself than to guard her heart. "You didn't choose me because you wanted me. You chose me because you could." "Yes." She flinched at the honesty. "And somewhere along the way," he continued, "I stopped being able to separate those things." Her throat tightened. "That's terrifying." "It should be," he agreed. "I don't do halfway." She looked at him then, really looked, at the man who had been untouchable, calculated, certain, now standing in front of her like someone who had run out of armor. "I don't want to be the thing that destroys you," she said softly. "You're not," he replied. "You're the thing that exposed me." "That's worse." He took a step closer. "Do you think I don't know the cost of this?" "Then why keep paying it?" she asked. "Because for the first time," he said, voice low, "the cost feels honest." Silence stretched between them, thick and fragile. She laughed softly, a sound edged with exhaustion. "I was pouring wine 3 days ago." "And now?" he asked. "And now," she said, "I don't recognize my life." He reached out, stopped himself again. "Say it if you want me to stop," he said quietly. She met his eyes. "And if I don't, then I won't." She closed the distance herself. The kiss wasn't desperate. It was careful. Like both of them understood how easily this could break. His hand came to rest at her waist, warm and steady, not claiming, not demanding. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his. "This doesn't fix anything," she whispered. "No," he agreed, "but it tells the truth." Later, they sat together on the edge of the bed, shoulders touching. "They'll come for you again," Stephanie said. "Yes." "And for me." "Yes." She exhaled slowly. "Then we can't pretend this is just about feelings." He turned to her. "What do you want?" The question surprised her. No one had asked her that since the night she became the price. "I want choice," she said after a moment. "Real choice. Not protection disguised as control." "You'll have it," he said. "How?" she asked. "By stepping out of the shadows," he replied. "By becoming visible on your terms." Her pulse quickened. "That's dangerous." "So was loving you," he said simply. She studied him. "You really would burn your world." "For the wrong reasons?" he said. "Yes, I've done it before." "And for the right ones?" He met her gaze steadily. "I already am." The door opened quietly. A man stepped inside and bowed his head. "Mr. Kang, Victor Hale has been located." Stephanie's breath caught. Jin-woo stood. "Where?" "Border warehouse. Minimal security." "Of course," Jin-woo said coldly. "He wants a message." Stephanie rose too. "You're going after him." "Yes." Her hands clenched. "Then, this doesn't end tonight." "No," he said. "It escalates." She swallowed. "And me?" "You stay," he said instinctively. She shook her head. "No, not like before." He turned. "Stephanie, if this ends," she said firmly, "it ends because we faced it together, not because you decided I was too fragile." His jaw tightened. Then slowly, he nodded. "Very well." She exhaled shakily. That was harder than surviving a gunman. He almost smiled. As they prepared to leave the room, Stephanie paused. Jinwoo? Yes. If we survive this. He waited. I won't be invisible again, she said. He looked at her like the promise was sacred. You never were. Outside, engines started, weapons were checked, and somewhere in the city, Victor Hale waited, confident he still had control. He didn't know the truth yet. The woman he thought was expendable had already changed the balance of power. And love, once awakened, had no intention of retreating. The warehouse smelled like oil and rust. Stephanie felt it the moment she stepped out of the car. Old metal, stale water, the kind of place where screams didn't echo because no one ever listened. Floodlights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across stacked crates and abandoned machinery. Victor Hale stood at the center of it all like a man who believed the night belonged to him. Well, Victor drawled, clapping slowly as Jinwoo approached. You finally came out from behind your walls. Jinwoo didn't slow. You leaked her location. Victor smiled. You made her visible. I just followed the trail. Stephanie felt Jinwoo's presence shift beside her, protective, controlled, dangerous. Victor's gaze slid to her. You don't look like much. She met his eyes without flinching. Neither do you. Victor laughed. She talks. She survives, Jinwoo replied coldly. Gunmen stepped forward, weapons raised. Jinwoo lifted a hand. They stopped. This ends tonight, Jinwoo said. You tried to touch what was mine. Stephanie stiffened. Jinwoo continued, voice steady. Name your price. Victor's eyebrows lifted. Oh, I already did. I wanted to see how far you'd fall. You wanted leverage, Jinwoo said. You wanted fear. Victor shrugged. I wanted to prove you bleed like the rest of us. Jinwoo nodded once. You succeeded. The silence stretched. Then Victor's smile widened. Kill him. Gunfire exploded. Stephanie dropped instinctively as bullets tore through the air. Jinwoo moved fast, pulling her behind a steel column as his men returned fire. Shouts, screams, the metallic clang of bullets striking metal. Stephanie's heart pounded, but her mind was clear. This was it. No more watching. A man rounded the corner, gun raised. Stephanie reacted without thinking. She grabbed the fallen weapon at her feet and swung it hard into his wrist. The gun clattered away. He cursed. Jinwoo's man took him down in seconds. Jinwoo stared at her briefly. You okay? She nodded. Don't stop. They advanced together. Victor retreated, backing toward the far end of the warehouse, panic flickering beneath his bravado. You chose her, Victor shouted. Over power, over alliances, over everything. Jinwoo stopped a few feet away. I chose consequence. Victor sneered. She'll ruin you. Stephanie stepped forward before Jinwoo could stop her. No, she said clearly. You already ruined yourself. Victor's eyes snapped to her. You think you matter? She didn't hesitate. Enough that you tried to kill me. That struck. Victor's gun hand trembled. Jinwoo moved in that instant. The fight was brutal, fast, final. When it was over, Victor lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, eyes wide with disbelief. Jinwoo stood over him, breathing, steady. Any last words? Victor rasped. Victor laughed weakly. You'll lose everything. Jinwoo looked back at Stephanie, then back at Victor. Maybe, he said calmly, but I won't lose myself. The gunshot echoed once. Silence followed. Stephanie stood frozen, chest heaving, the reality of it crashing down on her all at once. Jinwoo turned to her immediately. Are you hurt? She shook her head. It's over. No, he said quietly. It's decided. Back at the estate, dawn crept in through the windows. The city woke unaware of how close its balance had come to breaking. Stephanie sat on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. Jinwoo knelt in front of her. I'm ending it, he said. She blinked. Ending what? This life, he replied. The version of it that demands blood to exist. She searched his face. You can't just walk away. No, he agreed, but I can change how it's run. She swallowed. And me? You're not a shield, he said, or a weakness. You're a choice. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, not from fear, but release. "I don't want to be your redemption," she said. He reached for her hands gently. "Then be my equal." Silence held them. "What happens next?" she asked. "We disappear for a while," he said. "Let the world recalibrate. And when it finds us again," he smiled faintly, "then we face it together." She nodded slowly. "No more decisions without me." "Never again," he promised. Outside, the sun rose fully, light spilling across the city that had nearly consumed them. Stephanie took a breath. For the first time since the night she poured wine for men who saw her as expendable, she felt something new. Control. The city felt quieter when they returned, not because danger had disappeared, but because the kind of noise that followed bloodshed had finally settled. Power had shifted. Alliances were being rewritten in rooms Stephanie would never enter, but she felt the tremor of it all the same. She stood at the window of the safe house Jinwoo had taken her to, watching the morning traffic flow like nothing had changed. Everything had. Jinwoo moved behind her, careful now, as if afraid she might vanish if he reached too fast. "You can leave," he said softly. She turned. "You've said that before." "And I'll keep saying it," he replied, "until it's always your choice." She studied his face, the man who had once spoken with absolute certainty, now learning restraint the hard way. "What happens to Hei-rin?" she asked. "She's alive," he said, "but finished." Stephanie nodded. "She loved power more than she loved you." He didn't deny it. "And I loved control more than I loved truth." They sat together in silence, the weight of everything they had survived settling gently instead of crushing them. Days passed, then weeks. The world adjusted. Jinwoo didn't disappear. He reshaped, delegated, cut ties that had always been dangerous but profitable. Violence didn't vanish from his life, but it no longer defined it. Stephanie watched him change slowly, not because she asked, but because he wanted to remain worthy of standing beside her. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park far from the city center, she finally spoke the truth she had been holding back. "I was never meant to be strong," she said. "I just learned how to endure." He stopped walking. "You're stronger than endurance." She shook her head. "Endurance kept me alive. Choice gave me power." He reached for her hand, not possessive, not demanding, equal. "I won't cage you," he said, "even if it means losing you." She squeezed his hand. "That's the first time anyone's ever loved me correctly." Months later, when the world had learned new names and forgotten old scandals, Jinwoo took her back to the city, not to the penthouse, not to the rooms where she had been traded like currency, but to a small rooftop overlooking the river. He didn't kneel. He didn't make promises about forever. He only said, "If you walk away tomorrow, I'll let you. If you stay, I'll walk beside you." Stephanie smiled through tears. "I didn't survive all of this to disappear again." She chose him, not because he was powerful, not because he had once claimed her, but because he had learned how to let go. Years later, when people spoke of Kang Jinwoo, they told a different story. They said he once ruled through fear, and then he met a woman he tried to use as a price, and learned the most dangerous thing in the world is a woman who survives being chosen and still demands choice. Stephanie Brooks never poured wine again. She never bowed. She never belonged to anyone but herself. And that was the price Jinwoo paid. Gladly. Sometimes life doesn't ask for permission before it changes you, but no matter how you're chosen, traded, or underestimated, your power begins the moment you decide who you belong to. If you were Stephanie, would you have stayed and faced the danger with him, or walked away the moment you were free? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story kept you till the end, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories like this. Thank you for being here.